Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we unpack the trends shaping our culture, their origins, their philosophy, and, let's be honest, their price tag.
And today we're looking at a consumer segment that is quite literally on all fours.
We are talking about the absolutely soaring world of pet fashion and luxury consumption. It's an economy built on, well, a very specific kind of love.
Exactly. It's where human emotion meets the cash register, the commodification of interspecies affection.
And to really get a handle on the scale of this, we have to start with, I think, the most extreme example, a perfect case study for our mission today.
It has to be Paris Hilton's late lapdogs.
Right. Tinkerbell, Prada, Dolce, they didn't just live in luxury. They had their own separate house, the mini Dougie mansion.
And we should be clear, this was not just a fancy doghouse. It was a bespoke, two-story, 300-square-foot miniature chateau.
Estimated at what, $325,000?
That's the number. And get this, it had heating, air conditioning, miniature designer furniture, a crystal chandelier,
And the Mercedes bed with Chewy Vuitton bedding. You can't make this stuff up.
a climate-controlled Mercedes bed.
And that, right there, tells you everything. This is not just about keeping a dog warm. This is about defining a relationship through material goods.
And that's our deep dive today. We want to understand the machinery behind this, what some call effective capitalism, that makes this kind of spending feel not just possible, but for some, necessary.
And it is a massive market. The numbers are just wild.
In the U.S. alone, between 2004 and 2014, pet spending jumped over 70%. It went from about $34 billion to $58 billion.
In just 10 years. And it's only grown since then. That's a staggering expansion.
It is, and it proves that the way we think about the value of a dog has fundamentally changed.
So where does that change begin? How did we get here?
You really have to trace the dog's changing role inside the family. By the early 20th century, the pet dog had become what sociologists call a love machine.
A love machine.
An effective end in itself. Its main purpose became emotional.
There's a fascinating parallel there with the human child, right? The idea that children became, quote, economically useless but emotionally priceless.
Exactly the same trajectory. The dog's job shifted from labor, hunting, guarding, to just being a source of companionship and positive emotion.
And that elevated status is where this idea of posthumanism comes in.
Precisely. Posthumanism is a lens that helps us analyze all of this because, at its core, it challenges that really strict traditional line we draw between human and animal.
So when we dress a dog in a little sweater,
Yeah.
we're doing posthumanism. How does that work?
In a way, yes, because pet clothes, especially things that mimic our clothes, they just blur that boundary. You're visually giving the animal human traits, identity, status, maybe even emotion.
So a dog in a tuxedo isn't just a cute picture. It's a statement.
It's a statement. The clothes put the dog in that ambiguous space, that sort of in-between on the human-animal continuum. You're disrupting the old species hierarchy.
And that is where the economic side kicks in, the idea of emotional capitalism.
Right. A concept from Eva Allows. It's basically a culture where our emotional lives and our economic lives are constantly shaping each other. They feed into one another.
And marketers just thrive on that.
Oh, completely. They aren't just selling you a dog sweater. They're capitalizing on the idea that the health and happiness of your bond with your pet is nurtured and maybe even measured by the stuff you buy.
It's a way to rationalize the spending. They use all this language of care and well-being.
And it works because, something like 92% of American pet owners see their pets as family. So if you see them as family, then failing to buy them the best feels like
Like an emotional failure, a failure of your duty as a caregiver.
Exactly. The money you spend becomes the proof of the love you feel.
This all feels so incredibly modern, the $325,000 dog mansion.
Mm-hmm.
But the impulse to actually dress dogs, that goes way back, doesn't it?
It goes back millennia. And it's a really interesting shift from pure function to pure status.
So in ancient times, it was practical. Roman war dogs had armor.
Right. That was for protection in battle. But even then, you could argue it was also a status symbol. It signaled the importance of the legionnaire it was with.
And in the Middle Ages, same thing, right? Hunting dogs wore leather vests.
All for protection. From wild boars, from thorns, from the undergrowth. Function first, always.
So when did it tip over into just fashion?
The big turning point is the Renaissance. In the European royal courts, think Queen Elizabeth I, they started dressing their little lap dogs in these incredibly elaborate outfits.
We're talking expensive fabrics, pearls.
Pearls, gold thread, the works. And that's the moment the dog becomes pure decoration. It's a signal of immense wealth and leisure.
It says, I have so much money and so much free time, I can waste it on dressing an animal whose only job is to sit on my lap.
That's it exactly. And then in the 19th century, that habit trickles down from the aristocracy to the new middle classes.
And you start getting the infrastructure to support it, like actual pet stores.
Crucially, yes. By the 1860s in Paris, you have the first mass-produced dog biscuits and dedicated pet fashion shops. Observers at the time called it the embourgeoising the beast.
Bourgeoising the beast. I love that.
It was about making the pet a respectable member of the middle-class family unit, and food and clothing were the tools to do it.
Which sets the stage perfectly for today, where celebrities and social media have just poured gasoline on that fire.
Celebrities are the accelerators. They take it from a niche hobby and make it a mainstream aspiration. I mean, you see it in high fashion media all the time.
Vogue has been doing it for years, right? Linking certain breeds to luxury lifestyles.
Love fashion, love her dog, that kind of thing.
Okay, let's talk about some modern examples because the scale is just, it's phenomenal. The perfect case study has to be Tika the Iggy.
Oh, Tika the Icky, an absolute icon. She wasn't just a dog in clothes. She was called the poster girl for the dog fashion craze.
And her wardrobe. It was reportedly around 300 outfits.
300 outfits. That is more than most humans I know. And her career was fully humanized.
She blew up during the pandemic.
Huge on social media. She was called a gay icon. She appeared in Vogue, walked the carpet at New York Fashion Week.
Attended the Billboard Music Awards. And even published a book before she passed away. That is a full-blown celebrity persona.
Entirely driven by fashion.
It really is.
Yeah.
And then you have someone like Demi Moore's dog, Pilaf, who weighs, what, 1.2 pounds?
Pilaf is the definition of a co-consumer. Moore has said Pilaf has flown to Europe 14 times, been to Broadway shows, museums,
The French Open.
the French Open, and was on the cover of Dogue, the dog version of Vogue. Moore even said she felt naked without Pilaf at the Golden Globes.
When your dog is your essential accessory, the line between pet and person has just functionally vanished.
And that creates a whole market for actual pet couture.
Like the designer Anthony Rubio.
He's a pioneer. He recreates celebrity looks for dogs, like Zendaya's red carpet gowns or Ariana Grande's costumes from Wicked.
But what's so interesting is that he uses these very glamorous, very high-end fashion shows as a platform for animal welfare awareness.
And that's the perfect summary of effective capitalism. You have this extreme conspicuous consumption, but it's justified by this higher purpose of care.
And you see that same logic baked right into the marketing. Like that British brand, Love My Dog.
The name itself tells you everything. And their manual, 7 Top Tips for a Happy Dog, is a masterclass in this kind of emotional marketing.
It's fascinating. The advice is all about how their products solve your dog's emotional problems.
Exactly. They suggest giving specific toys for separation anxiety, using lavender oil by their bed, and of course, dressing the dog for success in their cashmere sweaters.
And one of our sources made a really sharp observation here, that this advice sounds almost identical to the kind of stuff you'd find in old magazines on how to please your man.
It's the same mechanism. It frames the relationship as a duty of care, where you have to constantly work to meet the other's emotional needs. And the market is right there to sell you the tools. Your dog's happiness becomes your consuming duty.
But this extreme humanization, it has a potential downside, right? What happens when the accessory isn't cute anymore?
That is the paradox. The clothes can elevate the dog, but they can also turn it into an object. And an object can be discarded.
The so-called Paris Hilton syndrome.
It's a real phenomenon. People who get a trendy lapdog for the social status, for the look, but they haven't internalized the commitment.
And when they realize the dog needs training and vet bills and actual work,
The dog gets abandoned. Like an old handbag or a pair of shoes that are out of style, it's disposable.
which really highlights the difference between performing love with money and actually demonstrating care.
Sure.
And from a pure animal welfare perspective, there are serious risks here, aren't there?
Absolutely. The RSPCA and other organizations are very clear about this. One of the biggest risks is communication.
How so?
Well, a costume can completely cover up a dog's body language. If you can't see their ears or their tail or how they're holding their body, you can't tell if they're stressed or scared or happy.
So if a dog is freezing in a costume or panting a lot, that's not just them being difficult, it's a real sign of anxiety.
A sign you might miss because the costume is obscuring it. And then there are the obvious safety hazards.
Like anything that covers their nose or eyes.
Or anything too tight, which can cause overheating. Or too loose, which is a tripping hazard. And you have to think about whether they can, go to the bathroom properly.
And all the little dangly bits, the buttons, the ribbons, those are major choking hazards.
A huge risk. They get swallowed, cause an obstruction, and suddenly you're in an emergency vet situation. Safety has to come first.
Okay, so for people who do want to get that high fashion look but do it safely, let's say a Chanel-inspired look.
Yeah.
How would you approach that?
The key is the material. You can get that tweed look, that black and white elegance, but you have to swap out the heavy wool for a breathable cotton blend, a soft lining.
Comfort is everything.
And safety. Use adjustable straps. And go for something like Velcro instead of a metal zipper that could pinch their fur or skin.
What about dyeing a dog's fur? That's another trend we see.
This is a critical one. You can never, ever use human hair dye on a dog. The chemicals are toxic, and a dog's skin has a different pH. It can cause chemical burns, poisoning. It's incredibly dangerous.
So what are the safe alternatives?
You have to use dyes that are specifically made and approved for dogs. For something really light and temporary, some people use natural food coloring or even beet juice or carrot juice for a faint tint.
But the best advice is,
Talk to a professional groomer. Go to a salon that specializes in it. This is not a DIY project you should be attempting at home.
so at the end of the day, what does this all mean? Our deep dive shows that pet fashion is, it's so much more than just a silly trend.
It's a material expression of this really deep interspecies love we feel, a love that the system of emotional capitalism is very, very good at monetizing.
And dressing our pets does challenge that old idea of human superiority. It makes the dog a full member of the household, a co-consumer.
But we have to remember that the true measure of that bond isn't the price tag on the sweater. It's the comfort, the safety, and the respect we give to the animal itself.
And this leaves us with one last provocative thought for you to think about. The pampered, privileged, high-fashion pet really embodies that Orwellian idea. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others.
So if we're willing to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a crystal chandelier for a dog, what does that say about the value, the welfare, and the consumption related to all the other animals, farm animals, wild animals, that exist inside the very same capitalist system?
It raises a pretty important question.